Okay, so welcome to the video. So those are primary shapes I'm going to be playing today, 7 different fingerings. This is a series I'm calling skeleton key arpeggios. Basically, the idea of a skeleton key arpeggio is just an arpeggio that unlocks a lot of other possibilities, a lot of other arpeggios. So the main point isn't this 7 I just played, but what you can do with those. So this is the second part in a series, but it does stand alone. So I'll put a link to the other first part up in the corner and in the description. In that one, I basically showed 7 different fingerings the way I did on this, with the only overlap being the very first triad and the last triad, everything else being different, all the other shapes within it. In that one, I mostly talked about how to break them into different triads, 7ths, 9ths, 11ths, 13ths. This one I'm going to briefly cover that, but I'm going to mostly focus on how to combine them together to make even more possibilities. So I'll go ahead and play through it slow, and keep in mind, like all my videos, the tab's available for free on my Patreon account, which you don't have to be a member of to download it or print it out, and the link is in the description. So on the tab, I included everything I just played, plus a couple other things I'll get to in a second. And it includes both the picking for the first couple examples, which then remains the same throughout, and the fingering for all examples. So let me go and play through it slow, and as I do that, I'll kind of talk about what these are. So basically, when I came up with these fingerings, and keep in mind, when I say I come up with something, it doesn't mean other people haven't done it. I'm sure other people have. But I basically wrote these for the video. And the idea was to create some fingerings that would be all stacked thirds. By doing that, you could start on any note, and that could be considered the root. It wouldn't be thought of as inversion necessarily, because every note is equal, basically. And I made them all 10 notes long, which allows you to play a 7th arpeggio off all 7 notes in the key in each fingering. So I'm starting off in the E position. Now, I also wrote the names of the arpeggios over top of them. And don't worry too much about that. If you played the whole thing, this would be E minor 11 with a flat 9 and flat 13. But inside it, you have all the triads, all the 7th arpeggios for the key, plus you've got 9s, 11s, 13s. So basically, I'd probably practice it starting off, just playing each note singularly. Then how I wrote it and played it, I'm immediately going into the next shape. But if you're first learning them, I'd probably just go straight up and down one shape and not blend them into the next shape. If I was going, just returning to the same shape, I'd use, in this example, like the pinky there. But if I'm going to the next shape, then I reach forward and actually use a second finger here, which puts me in position to play the next position. Another thing you'll notice as I go through this, I'm shifting my hand on the bass on it. You could maybe use a different finger and just stretch into it, but I find my old hands can't take a lot, and it's actually easier on my fingers to just shift than it is to try and stretch for the note. So I think we left off about here. Now when I'm looking at these shapes, you could see them, they all would be considered 13ths because they have all the notes in the key on it. But really I'm thinking of them as 3 separate pieces. So like if I'm doing this next one, that first part is just, I'm starting on the B, so it's all within key. So on the B, it'd be in the key of C, it'd be a minor 7 flat 5. So that's what that is. Now if you think of this last note of that, which would be the flat 7, as the beginning of the next arpeggio, then again, it's all stacked thirds. This is just A minor. That would be the A minor 7, but you could just think of it as A minor, and then the next one would be coming from this shape, which would be a G7. So you can think of it as that B minor, 7 flat 5, A minor, G7, if you wanted to. That just makes it a little bit easier to visualize and trying to see the whole shape as one shape, in my opinion. So if I continue forward, and you'll find, personally, some of the ones that have like the minor flat 5 tend to be the harder ones to do, if those are prominent in it. Now, let me say one other thing on this. When I'm actually playing it fast, I'm adding a couple extra notes in it, which I showed in the beginning part, but I didn't write throughout the whole thing as notes in parentheses. So let me demonstrate that. So if, let's say I'm doing off this A minor, 11 flat 13. So I'm playing those just singularly, but then when I get here and I have two notes, I'm going to double up this last note. So it's down, up, down. Then I double up this one. That allows me to keep my sweeping count going by doing all sets of 3 or 1 in these middle strings. But in the direction changes, I'm not necessarily doing that. So for example, if I came down that same arpeggio, and right now I'm not doubling up, but if, when I go faster, I would. That's just up, down, up. So there wouldn't, I'm not doubling up that note, because on the string changes, I don't really feel it breaks the flow. So, you know, if I'm doing an arpeggio like this, I'm not doubling up that highest note, even though it ends up giving me a picking where I'm going down, up, down. I could pull off or hammer or something to get the picking so you can sweep, but I usually don't. I just pick it. But in the middle, like if I had an extra note here, then I would double up this note because I think it makes it flow better. It's not that you couldn't just do an upstroke, down, down. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But by adding this extra note, I think it just flows a little bit better. It's not necessarily faster, but I think it flows a little better. So that's personal choice. Now, the first video, let me show one of the arpeggios from that, because then what we're going to talk about is how you can combine the two together. But actually, before I get into that, let me just briefly recap some ideas in the first one, which is how to break these into different pieces. So basically, let's say I'm taking this arpeggio on the A minor one again. So I can break it into triads, you know, and just do basically a set of 3 notes. And each one would be A minor, C major, E minor, G major, and you can get through all the triads. In fact, you at the top, it would repeat A minor, so I have all 7 plus the A minor again. I could do 7s, same thing, just do a group of 4 notes. And because it's all stacked thirds, each new note is just my root. So C major 7, E minor 7, G7, and I would get the correct ones. So whatever note I start on, and I do a group of notes. 3 notes is a triad, 4 notes is a 7th, 5 notes is a 9th, 6 would be 11th, and 7 notes would be a 13th arpeggio. And which ones it will be, if you look in the description of the, I wrote out all the ones for the key. So that as long as you know what note you're starting on, you can figure out what it is. Some of them will get kind of complex. You also will see names on here. So, you know, like the B minor, it's a B minor 11, flat 5, flat 9, flat 13. So it sounds complex, but if you just play the thirds and start on B, you'll have the correct arpeggio. While other ones, like on C, it's just a C major 13, or a G, it's a G 13. Okay, so if you want more details on that, look at the first one. I tabbed out triads and 7s on that one, so that you can see as an example. Now, what you can do though, let me show you one from the first one. So I'm going to show you this A minor. So instead of reaching forward like I did in this one, I'm just going to go straight down, A minor 7. Then I'm going to reach forward here and do a B minor flat 5. And then shift forward on the top, it's set on the bass, and there's my A minor again. And that's tabbed out on the sheet too, so that if you haven't watched the first one, you can still try combining them. So then what you can do is take any of the arpeggios from the first one and combine them with the ones from the second one. Now, I wouldn't necessarily combine the A minor with the A minor. Instead, if you take the G, since that shifts right away, the G13, that puts me right in the position where I'm playing the notes I'm not playing in this one. So here I'm playing A, C, E, G, and here I'm playing G, B, D, F, A. So they work good to combine together. So if you take one on either side of it, you know, you can then kind of do that. But because it shifts forward, if you take one behind it, then it shifts into the same position. So now I can take just groupings. So let's say I take 3 notes on here. Then you could take 3 notes on the other one. If you take 4 notes, and see, it doesn't matter which one I start on. I can start on either one. I could do, so that was 4 notes on both. I could do 4 notes here and then 5 notes here. So then you get, and it can be reversed. So I did 4 on the one from the first video, 5 on the one from the second one, or I could do 5 on both. So then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or you don't have to finish and do this starting from the same like beginning note. I could do 4 here and then do 4 here and ending, leaving off that first note. So you end up something like that. Or I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here, and then just go 1, 2, 3, 4, but leave off the first 2 notes from that other arpeggio. So you end up with something like that. So basically, combining them in however you want. Not, you can start on the same first note of each arpeggio and then play 3, 4, 5, 6 notes. You could do 5 on one, 4 on another. It doesn't matter. Any mix, and you get tons of different combinations. And all 7 arpeggios, you could do that with the 7 from the other one. I also wrote an example on here down at the bottom, which is basically combining those 2 together that we just did. So in this one, I'm playing 4 from that first video, and then, so this is an A minor 7, and that's a F major 7. Then I'm going to go here and play the B minor 7 flat 5 from, again, alternating between the arpeggio from the first and the one from the second. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to do one from the second. So you end up something like that. Now that's just a drill. Just show you how you can combine them together. If you want to make it actually sound good, you maybe only just take a piece of it. Maybe I just take this and just go into part of the next one, or I take this and just go into that one. I wouldn't necessarily do the whole drill. And of course, at any point, you can combine any other arpeggios you know, or scale runs, or whatever you want. The real goal of this isn't to memorize these shapes. The goal is to get more comfortable playing the 7s and the triads and the different shapes anywhere on the neck. So wherever I see, then I can see, okay, here's the 7th odd, here's this one odd, and you can see them wherever you are odd. Now I'm going to do another video. I plan to put a kind of etude or lick that would use a lot of these in this video, but it ended up going from a couple lines to a full page. So I decided to push that back into a separate video, and because I'm pushing it back into a separate video, I'm going to, instead of just using the ones from this one, I'll use from both the first part and this part and create that etude so it has arpeggios from both of them. So you can, that'll be my next video I put out. I'm kind of rewriting it now to include ones from the first video because I was originally just ones from this one when I was going to include it in the video. If there's anything you have questions on, of course, leave comments. I think I'll leave it at that. You can just experiment yourself with them. Again, you don't have to try and memorize every possibility. Each one of these shapes has 30 different possibilities, with not counting some variables on that. So there's 210 total. And because the shapes don't overlap that much, if I have that A minor from the first video versus the one on this, after the first 3 notes it changes positions. So the only overlap is the first triad and the last triad. So if you do that, so there's only, of the 30 arpeggios you can create from those shapes, 28 of them don't overlap, meaning there's 30 in the first video and there's 28 different ones in this video, with only 2 that overlap into the first video. So between the 2 videos, you can break these down to over 400 shapes, not counting combining them, and that's gives you, almost infinite more possibilities. Plus, if you combine it with anything that you already know or things that don't fall into your like susses and stuff, gives you more options. Please leave a comment. Please like, subscribe, any of this stuff. I'm not monetized, so I'm not making money off these, but I'd still like more people to see them. It's really frustrating when sometimes I create a video and less than 100 people see it, which has happened on a couple of my recent videos. So thanks for watching.